Liz here. Okay, we are now at week 4 of our 4-part series on working with sellers. And now, what I want to talk to you about is a little sensitive because this is something that a lot of agents have a hard time with, and that is walking away. Or the question is, when do you walk away from a listing? I know that doesn't sound really positive, you know, the whole thought of when you're walking away means you're kind of abandoning a listing or the selling of it, but I do need to address this. This is very important, and that is that if a house is not going to sell because that house is overpriced, you're actually, I believe, professionally negligent in keeping that listing on the market for a whole bunch of reasons. One, you're setting that seller up for more and more disappointment. Number 2, you're setting the market up for more inventory, which just dilutes the market and isn't good for anybody in the marketplace. So the thing is that conditions change. I understand that oftentimes a seller's motivation changes, sometimes the market changes, sometimes the buyer pool changes. But for whatever reason that your listings are not selling right now, you have to ask the question why. Is it because the property is overpriced? Probably. Is it because the seller won't reduce the price? Probably. Is it because the market's changed and now the home is not that attractive to buyers in terms of pricing? Probably. All of those reasons are reasons that you need to address price. I think it is professionally responsible to be upfront and forward and honest with your sellers and have pricing discussions. So for example, let's imagine that you listed a house and you listed it for $250,000. And at that moment in time, the market was in the $250,000 range. Maybe there was an active group of buyers, the buyer pool was active, and maybe the market at that moment said $250,000, the seller was happy with that number, you were happy with that number, and you listed the property. But all of a sudden, you're not getting showings, you're not getting activity, and that buyer pool has dwindled away. What do? Do you just keep the listing on forever and have that property become aged? Or do you have an honest discussion with the seller? And I believe you have the discussion about, here's what's happened in the marketplace, here's what the changes are, here's what we need to look at, and here's where we need to be if we want to sell. And I think that we really need to talk more like that to sellers. Here's where the market is. Can you be in the market right now to sell, or can't you? If a seller does not want to do price reductions, and they will not agree to do price reductions, are you really serving that seller well by keeping the home on the market? And I would say absolutely not. And you know, it's okay to decline the listing, to take the listing off the market, and to do it in a respectful way. And it might look something like this. So let's imagine it was you and I was sitting down with you. What I would say to you is I'd say, you know, I am here to sell your home. And when you brought me in, initially the market was at $250,000. But the buyer pool has dwindled. We're finding that sales are actually coming in lower than that number. Now they're in the $235,000 range. And I know that you told me that you could not sell for a penny under $250,000. And we need to talk about that because the market is no longer at $250,000. So where do you stand today? And when they say, well, I'll tell you where I stand, I can't sell for, you know, a penny less than $250,000, is it in that client's best interest to just leave it on the market and wait? Now you can, I know agents have done that, but ultimately what happens is that listing just becomes older and older and older, and that seller becomes more and more frustrated, and all you're doing is just tracking the days on market history number, you know, right through to the roof. So I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think a better way to do it is to have regular discussions with the seller about price and be honest with them about price. Let them know what's going on in the marketplace. If they've had a change of heart, then you need to respectfully decline from marketing that property any further. And all you simply say is, you know, I'm here to sell your property. I am not here to leave your property on the market, only to age it so that it becomes less attractive to buyers. So at this point, we're not in a position, you're not in the position to sell it at that $250,000. So let's take it off the market. It doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. I'll still track the market every week. And as the market comes back to your $250,000 number, I'll be in touch with you and we'll get it back on the market. You know, I think sometimes when agents are not afraid to be upfront and honest and not afraid to actually step away from a listing is when the seller really gets the point from you that it is probably a good thing to be thinking about doing a price reduction. The other thing is I find that a lot of agents just leave the listing on indefinitely, hoping that the right buyer will show up. And you know what? I guess that is a strategy. And yes, you will find every once in a while that all of a sudden out of the blue, a buyer will show up and buy that property that's been sitting on the market a very, very long time. But you would have known that anyways if that property was off the market, because as the market changes and more buyers come into the buyer pool, you're going to see that from pending numbers. So if you do take any listing off the market, make sure that you track the pending numbers, watch to see if the activity is picking up, watch that market, and then get the listing back on. The other thing is, if you're at a listing presentation and a seller simply cannot sell their home, then you hear this all the time, they'll say, I can't sell it exactly under this number, but you know that the property really is not going to sell anywhere near that. Please stop taking these overpriced listings hoping that the property is going to sell, or hoping that that listing is going to be a sign in someone's yard that's going to bring you more business, because that's not good for your business. It's not good for anyone. It's really just a sign there that says, hi, I'm an agent that takes overpriced listings, and then they don't sell. Do you really think people want to work with you when you do that? I don't think so. So I really want you to think this week about, go back and look at every one of the listings you have. Ask yourself, have you really done the price adjustments along the way? Have you really had the price reduction discussion with every single one of your sellers? How old are the listings that you have? Because if you have listings that are 90 or 120 days old and you're not getting activity and they're not selling and you don't have showings and you don't have offers and you don't have interest, do you really think that just leaving it on the market longer is what it's going to take? I would say no. I challenge you to think about that. I would say doing a correct price adjustment is what is going to make the difference. Also, when doing price adjustments, you have to remember that sellers don't like surprises. So that's why what I like to do is I like to talk about the price reduction at the listing presentation. And it looks something like this. I might say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I want to talk right now about price reductions. We may never have to do one, but in the event that we ever do a price reduction, I just want you to understand my philosophy around price reductions and why I do them the way that I do them. And you know, a lot of price reductions on our MLS come in and there'll be a number, like here's a $10,000 price reduction, here's a $20,000 price reduction. I don't do price reductions that way. I do price reductions based on what the market is telling us about the home. So for example, if we're getting lots of activity, lots of showings, good feedback, then if we're going to do a price reduction, we're going to do a small one, only 3%. If we're getting kind of some activity but not as robust as I would like, then it's going to be a 4% price reduction. But if we have no activity, no offers, if we've got nothing, then we're going to need to do a 5% price reduction. So I just want you to know that, because it's important to know what you would be facing in the event we do a price reduction. Now, the reason that's important is because you've had the discussion. So if 3 weeks later or 6 weeks later you need to do a price reduction, you know now it's based on that 3, 4, 5% and not just based on some number that you're going to pull out of a hat. So it's really important when you're talking about price reductions, anything to do with price, that you're upfront with the sellers right from day one. So this whole series, over the last 4 weeks, the goal of it is to get you really thinking about all parts of the listing presentation. Think about, are you really talking about those 5 critical areas? Are you really addressing things like pricing, price reductions? Are you thinking about marketing, CMAs, online marketing, offline marketing? Have you really polished your listing presentation? And if your listing presentation is the same today as it was even a year ago, I think you need to get a makeover. Let's transform it, because I'll tell you, the market's changing and you got to change with the market. So thank you for joining me this month for this series. I love talking about sellers. And next month, we're going to have another exciting series to talk about. So please join me, and thank you so much for joining me today. Take care.